Yo YouTube, GK back, and I kind of misstepped in the last video for chapter 1. There actually is a little bit more to that, so we'll finish up that little chapter 1 left and then jump right into chapter 2. Welcome back to the read through. I think I'm going to change the title to like mock audiobook, quasi audiobook, something like that. Just to recap where we left off for chapter 1, Titus has been brought back from leading to the events of X2's perfect ending. He meets everyone on Besaid again, the Aurochs, Lulu, Waka. He meets Pain, Riku. He's feeling overall down, as if the first journey they went on he's not getting the credit for because people are not treating him as one of the legendary guardians, and that he should be. So let's kind of pick up off right there. Titus had went to sleep. The boat is going to return with the catch of the evening. They will need some help to bring fish to the village. Come on, let's go. This is a job for the Aurochs. The team made the decision to play blitzball while waiting for the return of the boat. Provocative, Keppa proposed a race to the cove. Titus accepted and rushed forward to the path with the others. However, he hurtled down the slope with only Yuna in mind. Not one single thought of the competition. She surely wonders where I am. I should have stayed in the village. You are slow, Titus, one of the boys exclaimed. He looked around him. He was running as fast as he could, and yet everyone was outrunning him, except Waka. Be careful, Waka, the man ahead mocked. It's nearly nightfall. You'll risk falling. Slow down or you'll hurt yourself. Oh, shut up, the person concerned replied. Yet he was laughing as loudly as the others. Enough, guys, stop. He surrendered after a minute. Unable to catch up, he had decided to force his team to wait for him. Titus took advantage of the opportunity in order to slow down and finally stop himself. Well, Waka, did retirement do a number on you? Short-winded, running with sweat, the person concerned nodded before getting up again. You remember the tournament in which we have participated in 2 years ago in Luca? I had planned to stop playing just after that. I had told you about it, hadn't I? I wanted to become a trainer, but we lost the next match. A bitter failure. It was different from when we were losing every time, but we haven't suffered from this. After this failure, we have trained every day with all our strength. The villagers have even released us from our chores in order to let us give ourselves entirely over to the game, and we have improved. I even think we have reached our best level. By dint of watching Dato and Letty, I have wanted to practice again, but at this time, Yuna has started to talk about the gull wings and to flail around. Luna's stomach has filled out, and I have been more involved in the affairs of the village. I am as motivated as anybody. I am still young too, you see. Well, he shrugged as if he was saying, you understand. He was still as indecisive as before, Titus thought. But every day Lulu reprimands me. He scratched his head as if wanting to hide his embarrassment. The rest of the team was now far ahead of them. The two friends were not able to hear them any longer. Titus was moving these 2 lost years in mind when Waka placed his arm around Titus' neck. When we were this close before, the young man asked himself. Busy to seek in his memories, he kept walking, pushed by Waka. The path they were following was surrounded the island. It was named the Waterfalls Path. Some thin droplets were falling from top of the cliff, and they ended up being soaked. Waka's fingers trailed up along Titus' neck with a circle movement up to his hairs and started to scratch his head. The situation was getting more strange. What the hell are you doing? Titus ended up exploding while pushing away the hand of his friend. Sorry, but I had to be sure. Waka appeared to regret his actions. You are really real. You're not an illusion? A specter from the far plane? I hope so. Of course I am real. Of course you are real, Waka exclaimed joyfully before he burst out laughing, as if making amends. However, Titus was not going to forget the words pronounced by his friend. Forever etched in his mind, he thought of the other world, this place where the dead could show themselves in reaction of prayers and talk with each other. He remembered his first trip to the far plane. He had thought about his mother and how she appeared before him. Was he not a ghost as well? Are specters only hallucinations, he asked Waka. Well, they are kind of like real visions, in other words. Here's how I understand things. The fireflies react to the mind of the one who gets into the other world and takes shape of the person they want to meet. The conversation is just made up by the living. Therefore, the dead can only say what the living wants to hear. If the living wishes for encouragement, the dead will give them some. If they wish for pity, the dead will comply. Really? The explanation was lucid, something unusual with Waka. Abruptly, Titus understood. Since his earliest childhood, Yuna's previous guardian had believed and followed Yevon's teachings. Then one day he had discovered it was a lie. Without the support of the faith, he had tried to explain the world which was surrounding him. This is what was hidden behind him was so clear an answer. But we are on Besaid, not in the far plane, right? So I am real. Then Titus pinched Waka's waist with a wonderful cry of indignation. The man ran away on the double. So that concludes chapter 1. I want to do like a quick recap after each chapter. Alright, so I wish I really had did that for the first episode. However, it just goes to show that things on the far plane seem to not really be too understood by all of the people very clearly, like how spectrals, as they call it, can be seen. Well, we know that unsent can travel the world. We saw that a lot in 10 and 10.2. However, they don't say, as they were saying, like they can only say in reply as to what the person who's summoning them, so to speak, wishes. So the fact that Titus has his own mind and seemingly going through tons of emotions here can I, in my opinion, say he is real, right? Like he is a real person. And he's upset again, just to go along with the theme that people aren't giving him the credit. They don't believe he's real. And, that can be quite hurtful. But let's get right to chapter 2. So, chapter 2. Besaid's waters overflowed with fish, but the catch ensured only the inhabitants' sustenance. In order to earn money, they produced a textile specific to the island. These last months, they had started to take advantage of the influx of people coming to visit the homeland of the High Summoner Yuna. They had converted a part of the temple to accommodate the travelers. When Titus arrived at the cove, the setting sun was dyeing the sky in orange, but the boat had not shown itself yet. "What is this small boat?" the young man asked. He was indicating a skiff marooned at the pontoon. Waka stood up straight. "I am presenting you the Aurochs Ace." Since his return, Titus had heard talk of the training boat of the team. The one in front of him a lot of time. He had imagined it bigger. The figurehead, which looked like a commemorative plate, probably symbolized the Blitzball's trophy. Unlike the original, always made of golf, this reproduction was only painted in yellow. The ensemble cut a sad figure. Thanks to this boat, the Aurochs have made considerable progress. The shallow water surrounded Besaid. It spread out so far it was difficult to train here in so little water. Jumping was dangerous. Here's why the Aurochs lacked strength. When they had to dive or to rise to the surface, thanks to the Ace, the team could rejoin from now on in deeper areas. This way, they had adopted tactics using the whole sphere pool, like the deep and shallow kick. "It has revolutionized our game," Bada summarized, sticking out his chest. Titus patted the pectorals of his friend with a smile of approval. "Originally, it was used for a little goods haulage at Port Kilika," Waka explained. "We have restored it by ourselves. We have financed the purchase and the restoration work thanks to the villagers' donations. From now on, we must not disappoint them." They started to warm up under Letty's orders with Dado, Badu, Jasso, Keppa, and Rash. The new recruits, Mesker and Karam, Waka and Titus, there were now 10. Waka started to form 2 teams. Letty whistled his fingers and the match commenced. They were following the rules of Half Blitz, a version which forbade players to disappear under the surface with or without the ball. Subject to penalties, Titus received 2 already. He found it hard to control his movements. "It is no big deal, don't worry." The cheering from his playmates was depressing him. Formerly, a level difference existed between a star player and a team from the countryside. Had the Aurochs improved so much, or had Titus regressed that far? "Becklem Clash," Bada shouted suddenly. The ball hit Titus in the face. Becklem, the previous trainer of the team, was famous for his severity. This unknown technique taught by someone he had never met shook him up, definitively. In order to turn this stinging setback into a joke, he played dead. He was drifting on the surface of the sea, arms and legs flabby, when he heard a voice declaring, "We are going to end this with team that scores the next point win the match, okay?" Titus stood up straight and noticed Keppa near himself, who was bearing a forced smile, and added, "The night is falling. We are not going to see the ball anymore." The long-awaited boat returned to port, lit by powerful lamps. The Aurochs helped it to the moor and uplanded the freight. The wooden crates were overflowing with fresh fish. Players and sailors moved the catch in bags, and they shared out and put it on their backs. "And me?" Titus asked. "You're not giving me something to take to the village?" "Sorry," one fisherman answered. "It was not a good day." The man, of around 40 years old, broke off to stare at Titus. Displaying an impressive stature, he had a luxuriant mustache, but his skin was very pale. "My name is Titus. Nice to meet you. Bria." He handed him a trident. "Carry it for me, would you? You fish with this weapon?" Amused, Bria shook his head. "With a net. This is to protect myself." "Against monsters?" "Do you have a moment, Wakka?" Bria asked point blank. The two men drew away. Titus could not hear their conversation, but Wakka's expression was enough for him to understand. Just after, the Aurochs, who were just discussing the best way to cook the fish, returned to the village, leaving Titus and Bria behind in a cove. Under the moonlight, the ocean was calm. Gelatinous and translucent creatures were crossing the beach without worrying about the men. To finally disappear in the trees, monsters were still there, Titus thought. Could he still fight them? Did he have the strength to do it? Or was he just a shadow of his former self, as the blitzball match had shown him? "I had forgotten," Bria murmured, while staring at the blitzball, which was lying at his foot. "Throw me a pass," Titus exclaimed. He hoped to start the conversation again, but the fisherman ignored him and just stared at the young man, who returned this attitude in equal measure for lack of anything better. Bria's long hair was waving because of the night breeze. With a closer look, he appeared to be younger than what Titus had thought. His mustache made him look older, but the most striking was his eyes. They were a faded blue and brought to mind two pieces of glass polished by the waves. "These eyes," Bria began. Surprised, Titus drove the trident in the sand and rushed to the ball. "These eyes have contemplated too long the distance." "Excuse me?" This declaration was quite enigmatic and needed an explanation, yet the fisherman became silent again. Titus hit the ball, which rose above his head. He caught it with his right hand and moved it to his left hand with a smooth movement. Knee, head, shoulders. The sequence was deeply fixed in his muscles. Since his interculture was staying quiet, Titus changed his approach. "You were not living here 2 years ago?" "No, I came to live near the High Summoner." "I see. I take care of the temple. Under Monk's authority a month ago, I was transferred here from Bevelle." "Did you hear about the members of New Yevon?" "Yes." "A bloody bunch of chickens, in my opinion." Titus answered with an awkward smile, but deep down he was applauding the fisherman's words. "Really? And what do you think about the Youth League?" "Minus Sabins. In other words, all stupid." "You are quite strict. And what about the machine faction?" Focused on the ball located on his head to prevent it from falling, Titus was waiting for Bria's answers. "I saw you coming." "Excuse me?" I'm not really sure if he understood. The young man turned in the direction of the ocean. The ball fell in the sand. "At midday, we heard Yuna's return thanks to the radio, and I followed the villagers. I saw you emerging from the ocean. How did you reach this place?" Titus did not feel like answering his question at all. An ill-conceived exclamation could produce a disastrous impression. If he got into trouble with this man, linked to the religion of Yevon, who knows what consequences it could have for Yuna. 2 years ago, you came from Zanarkand, not from the ruined city we know, but from a fast-growing city. Nobody believes this, but I am willing to trust you. Thanks. How did you get back to Spira then? Titus stayed quiet. According to the rumor, Sin carried you. I don't know what to say. Do you think he could have sent you back to Zanarkand? Once again, he did not want to answer his question. Anyway, Yuna had defeated Sin. He did not have a way to confirm this hypothesis, yet Tidus was certain of one thing. The city I had known does not exist anymore. It was the one from the summoning. I would like you to tell me more about it. Tidus shrugged without obligation. Sin had spread chaos across Zanarkand. How could the cities have survived such a disaster? It does not matter. Recently, I have perceived a lot of signs. I think I will be able soon to resolve the mystery which has kept me busy for a long time. Which mystery are you talking about? The greatest of all. The man burst out laughing, and Tidus lost his temper. Are you making fun of me? What do you want? Did you come to live near Yuna, or have you been transferred from Bavel? What do you want to tell me? What is the true motive behind your presence? I beg your pardon if I hurt you. My life is a bit too complex to be summed up. Humans try to induce casual relationships, but the truth is that these links, we invent them pastore. I hate these unknown words you speak in. Tidus immediately regretted his words. Bria said goodnight to him and left. Sorry, the young man murmured. To his utter astonishment, the fisherman waved to him. He had heard him. Tidus thought he had just gone so far as to deny Auron, to whom he owed a lot. Bria was right. The lives of some people were too complex to be summed up within a few words. And when such a person wanted to hand down the fruit of its experience, it probably expressed itself like him. Maybe will I find myself in the same situation one day? Remaining alone on the shore, Tidus ascended the pontoon and laid down on it. His face turned in the direction of the sky. Oppressive clouds were hiding the stars. The wind was picking up, and the water lapping against the pillars of the pier appeared to accentuate itself. Once the oryx dropped off the fish at the village, the banquet would begin, and Tidus could not talk to Yuna. Was it a punishment? Had someone managed to prevent the young man from seeing her? If Tidus ran into the one behind these goings-on, he would shrug it off and finally talk to the young woman. It would be so enjoyable. Humans try to induce casual relationships, but the truth is that these links, we invent them pastore. Frustrated, Tidus let out a cry and tapped his foot on the boards of the pontoon. The wood returned a dull sound, but another sound, more high-pitched, metallic, answered. The boy stood up straight to look around him. Vestiges of antique mechanisms remained in various locations on the island. Tidus doubted that someone knows about their initial purpose. Some of these ruins were erected near the cove like chimneys. Their orange paint faded by age. A big gull was perched on the vestige near to the water. It was holding something between its legs, and it was pecking fervently at the object. The strange noise had come from it. Gong, gong, gong. Reassured, Tidus had lain down once again and closed his eyes. By association of ideas, his mind opted for the Gullwings. Yuna had spent the last 2 years with this group made of young people who seemed nice to her. To think that life had continued during his absence and that his friends, yes, even Yuna, had fun, made him feel uncomfortable. He saw again the smile of the summoner who had the colored clothes she wore from now on. She was no longer this shy 17-year-old oppressed by the ordeals that he had met 2 years ago, but a blooming woman. He sighed. Would he have preferred her weeping over his disappearance? If someone had asked him the question, he might have given a positive answer, and he hated himself for that. On edge, he started to shake on the woods of the pontoon. It was nighttime. The fish was ready. Yet Yuna was not there. Unsurprisingly, several elders were missing too. The old ladies got mixed up together once again, Waka murmured quietly in order to not be heard. He knew that he had waited impatiently for the return of Yuna. All the villagers older than the young woman, Waka included, had contributed to her blossoming, and it made them quite proud. Orphan of the high slum of Nebraska, she had spent her childhood at the temple, surrounded with people with unshakable faith. As to answer the elders' prayers, she had followed the path of her father. She had defeated sin and brought the long-awaited calm back to Spira. Then the truth about Yevon's deception had been fully exposed, and the church had collapsed. Despite everything, elderly people continued following Yevon's teachings. Everything they taught us is not wrong, they esteemed. From now on, everyone was free to believe whatever they wanted, yet the elders showed very little tolerance towards the others. To their eyes, the youth was mistaken about the way in life and had too much fun. Since always, the village had worked like a family, and the gap which was growing wider between the generations was breaking Waka's heart. The oldest were incapable of getting used to these disruptions. Young leaders like Nuge and Baralai embodied the change. Their influence had extended very fast, even to territories as distant as Besaid. A piece of information which reached villagers 3 days earlier was already outdated. This new area was disconcerting the elders, who had always known an immutable world. Fortunately, Yuna had not forgotten what she owed them, and in these vague times they could trust the young woman. I wonder what they plan to do with her, Waka murmured. He headed for the temple and filled his lungs with the familiar perfume mixed with the smell of damp stones that the building was releasing. He was happily reminded of his era of childhood, a gift of Yevon. Okay, that officially concludes chapter 2. Wow. A lot of things have gone on. Basically two factions have now arisen, basically the youth and the old. It's very similar to what's going on nowadays. The way information should be received, how things can change. The youth are having too much fun. The old are still stuck and still believing these outdated methods, and there's some truth to say that not all of Yevon's teachings were bad. The kind of quotes that let you live as a good person, stuff like that is good and has always been good, but they can't seem to come to grasps, and Yuna is their link between old and new. Basically, she has done it all, and therefore she wants to give back to her community, so that she's reverting back to her Final Fantasy X version almost. Whereas when you saw her in X2, she's flourishing, so that's tough. And again, this guy Bria seems to know a lot. Maybe our new type of Auron character. He says he wants to uncover something. I don't know what that is yet. Maybe uncover Sin's true origin, uncover the Zanarkand origin. I'm not really sure, because Yevon's origins have been kind of uncovered, with Vegnagun being the conclusion of that. But we don't really know the 1,000-Year War. We don't know all of that. However, Bevelle has that information. And so you kind of get some of that story about who really started the war, whose teachings were stolen. So we kind of know some of that, but it's just interesting that it's set up now that Tidus has come back only to be treated as he was when he first got there. So it's very disheartening, and it kind of sucks as a fan to have Tidus, Titus, I'm going with Tidus, be this way. I know I switched it up, but that kind of sucks. And then the idea that he's not all here, right? He's not full form. I mean, Tidus is a fast character. If any, you know what I'm saying? Him, Riku, and Waka were basically the three characters who had the most speed in your party, and then you fight the super bosses with them, basically, penance, because they get quicker turns. So he's always been fast, especially as a Blitzball star. But to think that Bada, Letty, Jasu are better than Tidus, he's feeling that way, is crazy, because that team was just so bad, and he's the only one on that team who made them good. So that's kind of crazy to think that maybe he lost a step, but then he was playing with the ball to show that maybe it's more of a time thing, right? So maybe that's a perfect way to reset your character almost, for a new game, because you're not going to have Tidus come in all super strong, right? But when he was moving the ball smoothly, the adjective was he was working it. So some things are good to him, he can still do automatically, his body, right? That'll never ever change. Or I'm more so thinking that it'll just take more time for him to be back to where he was at the very least. But when you're someone who's lost 2 years and you look at everyone's progress, you're gonna think it's high. So that broke my heart a little bit. But this Bria guy is very interesting. He seems to know something, and that equation to Arden they made is pretty severe. I don't know. I don't think it's intentional that they're keeping Tidus away from Yuna. I think is what I had mentioned before, that they're lost out there in Besaid. It's a small village really, and now they're getting more attractions and tourists, and things are coming quick. I can't imagine what kind of tech they're using already with the machine faction communication methods. I can't imagine. And they mentioned Nuge and Barreleye. Yeah, so I'm excited. I can't wait to keep reading. We're going to do chapter 3 tomorrow. And I'm just trying to figure out the background, because the setting here was still definitely the beach, was still the Blitz ball. But was a lot of nighttime, a lot of fishing. So we'll see what kind of video I can put together, because I do want to keep it kind of tranquil. And you just leave it on and like listen. And if I start putting Final Fantasy stuff back there, it might be a little too misleading, or it's a little too distracting, because I already want to go play X2 again and try to get the 100% completion, because I know that glitch has been patched out, and kind of want to go get the platinum trophy in 10. But I'm GK, and have a good day.